Welcome to another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. And today I am so excited to have on an 89-year-old from Clarksburg, Ontario. She's my grandmother and my children's Gigi, and her hockey journey took her to Canada and the USA. Welcome to the podcast, Grace Gigi Walton. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great, thank you.
It's great to have you on, Gigi. We went for lunch there last weekend and we thought, I thought, well, why don't we document this now that I have this platform? Why don't we talk about your life and some funny things that have happened along the way? And I think people will get to know me a lot about getting to know you. What do you think?
That sounds great.
Okay. So, usually what I do in my hockey podcast is get into how we know each other. So obviously I've mentioned you're my grandmother and we had lunch last weekend, which gave us this idea. And she also gave me the best haircut I have ever had.
Oh, no.
That happened about, well, how long ago would that have been?
Yeah, might be 20 years. I don't know.
Oh no, Grandma, no. That's like 5 years ago or 5 to 10 years ago. But can you give me your recollection of the time you cut my hair when I was about, I would say, high 20s to 30?
Brent, you asked me to do it, but it didn't turn out very well.
Well, was it because I was a bad client or why was it a bad haircut? Because I remember it being a bad haircut.
That was my first haircut, my first time to cut anybody's hair.
And I guess you would have been about 80 years old. So, yeah, no, it didn't go well, did it, Grandma?
Not really.
I thought Lisa was impressed, though, when Papa and I got home from our golf trip and my hair looked like that.
That was too bad.
Well, we did the best we could, and it was a great memory. So, I guess we'll get into how. I guess we'll talk a hockey story first, since this is a hockey podcast. I put down that your hockey journey took you to Canada and the USA. Do you remember going to the USA to watch hockey?
I sure do. It was a trip of a lifetime.
So can you tell the listeners where you went and what you were watching?
We were watching a Brent play hockey in Michigan, right?
Yeah, Kalamazoo, Michigan for the
Kalamazoo.
Western. Yeah. So
first time to Kalamazoo.
So did you go to the U Club to my apartment or was I in the dorms?
Oh, Brent, do you remember?
No, I don't. Oh, I think it was the U Club, right? And you probably weren't that proud of me, eh?
I don't remember that. I know you were a good player.
well, thank you. I was hoping you didn't see my apartment when you came, but I imagine my parents probably didn't let you see it the way the state it was in. Okay, so next question is, where are you living now and what are you up to?
Oh, I'm in an apartment in Meaford, and my son and his wife live upstairs.
And that would be my Uncle Jim, who is my dad's younger brother, 19 years younger with the same birthday, correct?
That's right, 19 years apart.
Jeepers, you and Grandpa were busy in your later years, eh?
Oh dear.
But the reason I came up with this idea was that now that I have this platform, not to make sound strange, but we on the way to see you for lunch, we were talking about G-Pa, and they had met him, rode his wheelchair, and they didn't remember him. So that's not happening on my watch, Grandma. Okay, we're gonna have this forever. So we got the sound working and we're ready to rock, right?
Okay.
Okay, so where did you grow up and what were the schools and teachers like back then?
Oh, I grew up in a 100-acre farm, although my father had more land where we would go, and he had an old army truck that we could go from one farm to the other. And I soon got to drive it. That was when I got my driver's license. You just had to drive around the block and they gave you your driver's license.
Just around the block, eh?
That's it.
There probably wasn't a lot of traffic to bob through either, eh?
No.
So
Yeah.
did the 100-acre farm, what kind of farm was it?
Oh, we had cattle and pigs and a horse, a couple of horses, and we could. My brother and I could ride the horse to one of the other farms, and when the horse he'd go pretty slow, but when he got to the gate at the farm, he knew, and I could see the barn. Did he ever go?
And this was Clarksburg, Ontario, right? Out in the country. Right by the farm I grew up going to, right?
Pardon?
By the farm, your farm that I grew up going to, right?
Yes. Yeah. The farm that you grew up going to was just a 50-acre farm.
Well, I loved it. That was some of the best childhood memories a kid could have. Dirt biking, catching fish with your bare hands, which was not legal, but it was so much fun to catch rainbow trout with your bare hands. Like apple orchards. It was like you had everything I could ask for as a kid.
Or you had to watch for the game warden when you were catching fish.
Yep. I knew what to watch for and I knew where to run and hide too. But I remember your dog, was it Pepper? Used to help us catch the fish. When they'd be in the river, he would go into the river and fish them out, right? So then they would go upstream to us.
That's right.
Geez, we better not go to jail for talking about this. We never kept them though. We always took them back, right? The next thing I got, Gigi, because we're getting ahead of ourselves. So what were the schools like around there? You had the army truck. What were the schools like?
When I went to public school, we had to walk 1.5 miles, and even in the winter time, and the girls were not allowed to wear slacks or pants. We could wear them to keep warm, and then we would take them off. And we had all grades in the same room. The teacher taught all 8 grades at once. And
so what, when you take your pants off when you don't have to stay warm, what are you wearing then? You got to have something on.
Oh, we'd have a dress on.
Okay, well, that's good. I think it sounded like you were walking to school and dropping your pants.
We had big pot-belly stoves to heat the schoolhouse. And one day I stood in front of the stove to get warmed up. And first thing I knew, I had a hole in my skirt. So I got to go home.
Would have been a bit cold on the way home, or was it not winter? Or I guess you had the fire going. It would have been a bit chilly on the way home, eh?
It was warmer. And when spring came, my brother and his friend liked to eat the leeks, and then their breath smelled pretty bad, so the teacher sent them home.
For bad breath, they got sent home.
Eating leeks.
Oh dear. So were the teachers pretty strict back then? Did they have the belts out or whatever it was?
Oh, they used the strap.
The strap.
If you were bad. I don't think I ever got the strap, but one of the boys was always getting in trouble. And when the teacher was giving him the strap, he held his hand back and she hit herself, and she didn't like that. And
So then what happened?
oh, he got in trouble another time, and she had to call the authorities.
Jeepers creepers. Sounds like quite the schoolhouse grandma. Okay. Well, next question I got is Papa was giving me a bit of a rundown before our meeting here. And my next question is, so you went to school around Clarksburg in a little schoolhouse with all 8 grades, but then when do you stop school? Is it after grade 8? And then, or actually, yeah, just when do you stop school? After grade 8?
What's the question again?
When are you done school? Is it grade 8?
Well, you finished. Some of us skipped a grade, so I spent 7 years in public school. And then we had to, I think the school buses just started running when I got out of public school. So we rode the bus to Thornbury to go to high school.
Oh, okay. So you did go to high school then. I didn't know.
Oh, yes, right to grade 13.
Okay. So then when do you meet G-Pa, which is my grandpa, Tom?
Well, my aunt and uncle lived near Tom's parents. So they brought the Waltons up to Clarksburg to get some plums and apples, and that's how we met.
Okay. So then he would like how would you see each other then once he goes back, or was it just a lot of plums being exchanged?
I think he drove up about every week with his car to see me.
Oh geez, he had the hots for you, did he? So what age was that?
Probably 19, and I was still 20 when we married, and he was 20.
Okay, that's too young, but you guys stuck with it until his passing there. I remember being at one of your wedding anniversaries. It would have been one of the bigger ones. Was it 50? I think I had just got my wisdom teeth out and I had like issues, because I remember that day out at the farm. Would that have been your 50th anniversary? And how many years did it end up being then?
Yes, we had a party and put up a big tent when we were 50 years married. And he was already in a wheelchair then. And we were almost 67 years married when he passed away.
And I guess I don't have this on the notes, but well, he had a stroke at, I remember the day it happened. I was going to minor hockey practice with my dad. He got a call and he took off for Thornbury. And yeah, your life changed that day too, eh?
It sure did.
So he was in a wheelchair the rest of his life. And that was a lot of years. He was, I guess, not able to use one side of his body and was in a wheelchair, eh?
Yes, that's right. He had no use of his left hand.
And you took care of him for a very, very long time. And my goodness, Grandma, you were a warrior.
Thank you.
All right. I didn't have that on the notes, and that is not what this podcast was about, but because this is a funny podcast, but sometimes we get real. So the next question is, so you get married, Grandma, and I didn't find out about this until I was about 25 years old. I remember the weekend. One of my best friends, Andrew Lackner, had just got married, and we took a road trip up to Hershey, Pennsylvania, to see your son, Uncle Russ. And that night we got into a few drinks, and the topic came up because we were talking about what we were gonna name Colby, or what we would name our children when we had them. It was myself, Lisa, Dana, and Scott, my brother or sister and brother-in-law. So the topic came up that my Uncle Russ's name is not Uncle Russ. And my dad's name is Ronald, which is my middle name. So you had a son named Ronald, and Uncle Russ is not Uncle Russ. And he showed me the proof, the ID. So you already had a Ronald, and then you named the next one Donald. So you had Ronald and Donald. And who came up with those names and why?
Why?
Yes. I want to know. Well, if you just really like the old at the end, that's fair. I just want to know, you already had a Ronald. Why did you have to name the next one Donald? What was going on there?
Russell's, we wanted to call him Russell, and we should have put Donald in the middle, but it sounded better to say Donald Russell. And Tom's brother had his name was Donald, and so that's why we used Donald.
So you used Donald, but you meant to call him Russell from the start. So when you guys started calling him something, you weren't calling him Donald?
No, we never called him Donald.
But you put it on his ID. So my uncle and my dad are called Ronald Donald, right?
I think that it's just for fun.
I think it's just incredible. I really do, Grandma. I mean, I just thought maybe you'd ran out of ideas for names. I'm glad you clarified that you thought it sounded better, but I mean, I don't. That's just too much for me. Okay, next question. One of my memories is of the story of you killing a mouse with your bare foot.
Oh dear. I was a teenager, still living with my parents. I don't think they were home that day, but my brother and sister were there with me. And we had a mouse running around in the house, and I was in my bare feet, but that didn't matter. I chased that mouse, and he went to go through when a door was open at the pantry, and the mouse would go through where the door was open, and I was able to step on his tail with my bare feet. My brother got the mouse trap and went around the other way and got the mouse in the trap.
Well, I guess this is a podcast, so I have to relate this, is that folks and listeners, this obviously is how I got my agility and skill, is if you're fast enough to step on a mouse with your bare feet, you're pretty good and quick in the corners, right, Grandma?
I guess so.
Oh, man. Okay. And this is another one coming from Papa, which is my father, Ronald, not to be mistaken with Donald. He said that what was your job when he was about 8 years old? Were you a teacher?
I was a teacher for probably 12 years. And we had the rural schools. So what did you want to know about me teaching?
Oh, nothing. Because he said when you would come home from teaching, that him as an 8-year-old would have a tub full of big rainbow trouts that he had caught in the river. And then you guys would have fish for the year. But as an 8-year-old, he'd be coming home and just a tub full of rainbow trout, eh?
Oh dear. I know. I was nervous about that.
I get what did he get up to some trouble as a young buck, Ronald?
Oh, I remember them taking my car, which was an old car, up to the neighbors, and they seemed to have fun driving around. It came home with grass hanging from underneath it. So they must have been going through the fields, racing around.
Yeah, he's told me a few of his stories with Huey, and they don't sound like they were being too careful with the cars. Okay. Next question, which I think this is a doozy for the listeners. He said that with him and Uncle Dennis, which is the oldest son, which I guess we should give a run. I'll give a rundown, or do you want to give a rundown of all the children you have? Do you remember them all still?
Oh, well, Dennis was the oldest, and 20 months later, Ronald was born. And then we took a break, and about 6 years later, I was pregnant. I had to quit teaching at Easter time, and Ronald was very upset that we were bringing home another baby, because I guess he thought he was the baby.
Sometimes he still acts like a baby, Grandma.
They loved Russell when he was born, and he weighed 10 pounds. So he was already a little brother that they could fight with. And I think they gave him some hard times. Well, then 2 years later, I was pregnant, and we actually got a baby girl. So that was pretty special. And we thought we were finished.
That's Aunt Janice, folks. That's Aunt Janice before you guys finish. Yep. You had your girl, Aunt Janice, right? And then the last one.
And 10 years later, we had a surprise and got another boy.
And so Ronald's not the oldest, and there's a 19-year difference. So it was about a 21-year difference between oldest
20 months year different, 20 months difference.
But from Dennis to Jim was 21
Dennis to Jim, 21 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here's the story then. This would have been when you're younger and more vibrant than when you have Jim and Janice, because this story is that Ronald and Dennis would catch chickens as fast as they can and give them to you to cut their heads off, and you would try and see how many chickens' heads you could cut off before the first one dropped. And he thinks the record is 7 chickens running around without their heads. Is that true?
That's a little bit exaggerated.
So the record's actually 4, or what's the record?
I remember a Christmas, a Thanksgiving turkey that we bought, and my husband was able to chop his head off with the axe, and the turkey was jumping around without his head on, and it was quite a sight.
So you never cut off a bunch of chickens' heads? So Papa's lying to me, or are you lying? This podcast is all about the truth.
Well, he probably remembers more of it than I do.
Okay, then we're going to have to take that as the truth, that you can have 7 chickens running around without heads on at the same time. And if any of the listeners out there think they can beat that, feel free to challenge my grandma Walton. Okay. The next, I guess this is kind of, I guess near the end of the episode, Grandma. I have down just for the next note is the farm and just how much it meant to me. And I know like Ashley and Amanda, my sister Dana, the family games we'd play, the dirt bikes, apples, the apple orchards are everywhere. It was a kid's paradise, right?
Thank you, Brent. It was great having everybody come home every Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. I think we did.
I guess actually, since this is a hockey podcast, Papa always tries to tell me that he wanted to play hockey as a kid, but could never got a ride there, so he would have had to hitchhike. Is that true? He said he played 1 year, but he had to hitchhike.
I remember driving the boys to hockey sometimes, but I couldn't always go. So I guess he would try and find another ride. So he probably remembers that better than I do.
Well, he said because he was living on the farm, or I guess Grandpa, or he too, like just wasn't willing. Like if you sign up for hockey, you're gonna have to figure out how to get there because like we just got too much going on.
Well, Grandpa wouldn't take them because he thought they would get hurt playing hockey.
Oh, well, that's true. You do get hurt. There's no doubt about it, but some people still want to.
And one time Jim was playing hockey and I had to drive him, but sometimes we took turns with the neighbors and I had to drive to the corner over towards the 8th concession to meet the neighbors. And the snow was a little icy on the road. And I was heading down the hill and I did a whole U-ey on the hill and my car hit the snowbank and kept on going. And I got to the corner safely. And I went all the way around the block to get home because I didn't want to go back up that hill again.
Oh man, the hills and how beautiful it is up there. I mean, wow, like yeah, we used to go hiking in the caves and we were right by Blue Mountain. It was an incredible spot. Like it really was. Yeah, there's a lot to do up there, eh? And I guess that's why real estate's gone through the roof.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I wanted to say, Graham, is thank you for making this work with me because I think this is a great memory, like for everybody, because I don't know, you best grandma boy could ask for.
Thank you, Brent.
And now we have this memory and I'll have this memory. So yeah, that's why, I mean, we've smiled a lot today. I've laughed a lot today. And you know what's funny? I started this 6 weeks ago and I've laughed so much with so many old friends. I just got ID'd at the Amberley store when I went to pick up a couple beers. The guy asked me for my ID and I've actually been going to that store for the last 6 weeks to pick up consumables for this podcast, Grandma. And every time I've gone, I've never been asked for ID. And he asked me today, and I said, "Oh, it must be the masks." And he says, "No, you look too young." And I said, "Okay." And I gave him my ID, and he just said, "Okay, wow." And I thought, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard, because if I would have walked into that store 6 weeks ago, I didn't look this happy. I didn't look this healthy. And it's all laughing and getting to do this with whoever I actually want to do this with. And Grandma, I couldn't have asked for a better guest today.
Well, we're very proud of you, Brent, and thank you.
When we were at lunch there and I was telling you about this, you said, well, I guess, what did you say? Only Brent could do that, right?
Yeah.
But that's not Brent doing it. It's Wally. And guess what? Wally is a lot of you, and a lot of me is growing up around you, watching you step on or hearing about you step on mice with your bare feet and cut chickens' heads off. And not that I'm cutting chickens' heads off, but maybe that's just my competitive streak of trying to beat the record of how many chickens I can get running around, right?
Crazy.
And thank you for all the raspberry pies on my birthday. I'm sure that had nothing to do with my physique in my teen years.
You didn't even let anybody else have a piece of your pie.
And this has been 2 ales and hockey tales with Wally and Gigi. Do you got something else to say, Grandma?
No, that's good. And thank you. And
All right, I'm gonna
have
stop.
a good one.
I'm gonna stop now, and we'll keep chatting.